The throbbing in my head started subtly, a dull ache behind my eyes. I dismissed it as stress from the demanding new job at the pharmaceutical plant. But within days, the pain intensified, morphing into sharp, stabbing sensations that made me double over. It felt like something was trying to claw its way out from inside my skull. Sleep became a battlefield, nightmares filled with pulsating veins and shadowy figures whispering promises of relief. The whispers promised a cure. The company doctor, a thin man with unnervingly calm eyes, prescribed a new experimental drug. He assured me it was perfectly safe, a revolutionary treatment specifically designed for my symptoms. He called it Project Nightingale. The name sounded oddly poetic for a pharmaceutical product, but my desperation outweighed my skepticism. He handed me a small, opaque vial filled with a viscous, luminescent green liquid. It pulsed faintly, like a tiny, beating heart. First injection brought an immediate, chilling sense of relief. The throbbing in my head subsided, replaced by a strange, almost euphoric calm. I slept soundly for the first time in weeks, the nightmares gone, replaced by vivid dreams of vibrant, otherworldly landscapes. But this newfound peace was short-lived. I woke the next morning with a gnawing emptiness inside me, a void that seemed to suck the joy out of everything. The world around me felt muted, dull, as if a veil had been drawn over my senses. My reflection in the bathroom mirror became a stranger. My eyes, once warm and brown, were now a cold, piercing green, the same eerie color as the liquid in the vial. My skin had taken on a sickly pallor, and my veins, dark and prominent, pulsed beneath the surface, mirroring the throbbing that had once plagued my head. I tried to convince myself it was just a side effect, that it would pass. But deep down, a chilling certainty took root. The cure was changing me, transforming me into something other. My appetite vanished, replaced by a constant, unsettling thirst, but not for water. I craved something else, something metallic, something vital. I found myself staring at my coworkers, my gaze lingering on the pulse points in their necks, the throbbing veins in their wrists. The whispers grew insistent, urging me to feed the growing hunger within. I fought against the urges, terrified of what I was becoming. But the cure, the damn cure, it was taking over. One night, I couldn't resist the cravings any longer. I found myself standing over a sleeping coworker, a scalpel from the lab clutched in my hand. The whispers were a deafening roar now, drowning out the last vestiges of my humanity. The metallic scent of blood filled the air. I woke the next morning covered in blood, a sickening emptiness in my stomach replaced by a horrifying satisfaction. The injections became more frequent. The whispers demanded more. I became a predator, stalking the halls of the pharmaceutical plant, driven by an insatiable hunger. My coworkers, once friends, were now prey. I tried to stop, to fight the monstrous urges consuming me, but the cure had rewritten my very being. The bodies began to pile up. The whispers turned to laughter, a mocking chorus echoing in my mind. I was no longer Mark, the research assistant. I was something else, a creature of the night, fueled by the very cure that promised to save me. Security footage captured blurry images of me, a shadowy figure moving through the darkened corridors. The police were called in. I became a phantom, a monster in the headlines, whispered about in hushed tones. The Nightingale Killer, they called me. I knew they were closing in. The whispers urged me to flee, to find new hunting grounds. But something held me back. A morbid curiosity, perhaps. A desire to see the culmination of my transformation. To witness the final, horrifying act of the cure. They found me in the lab, surrounded by empty vials of Project Nightingale. I didn't resist. There was no point. The cure had taken complete control. They took me away, strapped to a gurney, my eyes fixated on the moon hanging heavy in the night sky. The whispers were gone, replaced by a chilling silence. I spent years in a sterile white room, a prisoner of my own transformed body. They studied me, poked and prodded, trying to understand the cure, the monster it had created. One day, they found the cure for the cure, a way to reverse the transformation, to bring back the man I once was. They injected me with the new serum, and everything went dark. I woke up in a hospital bed, the throbbing in my head gone, my eyes back to their normal brown. The doctors declared me cured, a success story. But they don't know the truth. The whispers are back, fainter now, but growing stronger each day. And I know with chilling certainty that the cure never truly left. It just lies dormant, waiting for the right moment to bloom again. I woke up strapped to a cold steel table. The air smelled antiseptic, sharp and metallic. My head throbbed and my vision swam with blurry shapes. Panic clawed at my throat. Where was I? The last thing I remember was signing up for a sleep study. Something about advanced REM analysis. This wasn't a lab. It felt more like an operating theater. A single, harsh light glared down at me, intensifying the throbbing in my skull. My heart hammered against my ribs. The fog in my head began to clear, replaced by a rising tide of dread. I could feel something off. A dull ache pulsed in my chest, spreading outwards like icy tendrils. I looked down, my breath catching in my throat. There was a bandage on my chest, a large, square patch of gauze stained a disturbing shade of crimson. I tried to move my hand to touch it, but the restraints held me fast. Panic surged through me again, stronger this time, mixed with a sickening sense of violation. What had they done to me? A figure emerged from the shadows at the edge of the room. Tall and cloaked, its face obscured by the dim light. My heart pounded in my ears. It moved slowly, deliberately, its footsteps echoing eerily in the silence. I strained against the restraints, desperate to escape, to get away from this thing. It stopped beside the table, its presence radiating an aura of cold, clinical detachment. Fear turned to ice in my veins. I knew with a chilling certainty that whatever this was, it wasn't here to help me. The figure reached out a gloved hand, its touch sending a shiver down my spine. It peeled back the edge of the bandage, revealing nothing. No wound, no incision, just smooth, unblemished skin. Confusion warred with terror. What was going on? The figure then produced a scalpel, the metallic glint of the blade catching the light. My blood ran cold. I thrashed against the restraints, a silent scream trapped in my throat. This wasn't a dream. This was a nightmare. The scalpel descended, a searing pain erupting in my chest. I screamed, a raw, guttural sound born of pure terror. But there was no blood, no new wound, just the agonizing, phantom pain. The figure continued its work, the scalpel moving with a chilling precision, tracing invisible lines across my chest. The pain intensified, becoming unbearable. I felt like I was being dissected alive, my insides being torn apart, even though I could see no physical damage. The pain abruptly ceased. I gasped for breath, my body trembling with the aftershocks. The figure stepped back, its face still hidden in shadow. Then it spoke. Its voice was a low, distorted whisper, barely audible above the pounding of my heart. "The procedure has begun," it rasped. "Welcome to purgatory." My mind reeled. Purgatory? What did it mean? What kind of hellish experiment was I trapped in? Days blurred into nights. The cycle of pain and terror repeated itself endlessly. The figure would appear, perform its grotesque, invisible surgery, and then disappear back into the shadows. Each time, the pain was different, targeting a new area of my body. My mind began to fray, the boundaries between reality and hallucination blurring. I was trapped in a waking nightmare, a purgatory of endless torment. One day, I noticed something different. A small, flickering screen had appeared on the wall, displaying a series of complex medical diagrams. I focused on them, trying to make sense of the cryptic symbols and equations. They seemed to depict my body. But it wasn't just anatomy. There were other elements, strange, otherworldly symbols overlaid on the images. I felt a growing sense of unease. This wasn't just a medical experiment. It was something else. I began to understand. The diagrams weren't just mapping my physical body. They were mapping my soul. The invisible surgery wasn't cutting flesh and bone. It was dissecting my very essence, my consciousness. The figure wasn't a doctor. It was something far more sinister, a spiritual surgeon, peeling away the layers of my being, preparing me for something. The thought filled me with a primal terror unlike anything I'd ever experienced. The figure appeared again, its movements more fluid, more confident. The scalpel no longer caused physical pain. It caused something far worse. An existential dread, a feeling of being unraveled, of being stripped bare, exposed to some unseen force. I cried out, not in pain, but in despair. I was losing myself, dissolving into the nothingness of this experimental purgatory. The diagrams on the screen began to change. The familiar anatomical structures faded, replaced by a swirling vortex of light and shadow. The symbols pulsed with an eerie energy. I felt a pulling sensation, a force drawing me inwards, towards the screen, towards the vortex. I fought against it, clinging to the remnants of my sanity, but the pull was too strong. I was being pulled into the screen, into the vortex. My body felt like it was dissolving, becoming one with the light and shadow. The figure watched, a silent observer to my disintegration. I screamed, a silent scream lost in the void. Then darkness, oblivion. I ceased to exist, or so I thought. I woke up in my own bed. Sunlight streamed through the window. It had all been a dream, a terrible, vivid nightmare. I sat up, relief washing over me. Then I saw it, a small, square bandage on my chest, identical to the one in my dream. My blood ran cold. I ripped off the bandage. There was no wound, just a single, intricate symbol etched into my skin. The same symbol I had seen on the screen in the purgatory. I screamed, a real scream this time, echoing through the room. It hadn't been a dream, it was real, and it was far from over. I swear that first night on the new ward, something felt off. The fluorescent lights hummed a sickly green, casting long shadows down the empty hallway. The air was thick, sterile, but with an underlying metallic tang that I couldn't quite place. It was quiet, too quiet for a city hospital, even at 3 a.m. Just the rhythmic beep of the heart monitor down the hall and the distant clatter of a dropped tray from somewhere below. I told myself it was just nerves, a new job, a new city. My first patient was in room 404, Mr. Henderson. Old guy, stroke, mostly unresponsive. I checked his vitals, adjusted his IV drip, the usual routine. But as I turned to leave, I noticed something odd. His eyes, previously closed, were now slightly open, fixed on me. They were milky white, unseeing, but there was this intensity, like something was looking out from behind them. It sent a chill down my spine. The next few hours were uneventful. I made my rounds, checked charts, the usual monotony. But that feeling of being watched never left me. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see something lurking in the shadows. Every creak of the floorboards, every distant clang, sent a jolt of fear through me. I started to question my sanity. Was I imagining things? Was the stress of the new job getting to me? Around 5 a.m., I went to check on Mr. Henderson again. His room was empty. The bed was neatly made, the IV drip gone. I rushed to the nurse's station, heart pounding. "Where's Mr. Henderson?" I asked, my voice trembling. The nurse, a tired-looking woman with dark circles under her eyes, looked at me strangely. "Mr. Henderson," she said, frowning. "He passed away 3 weeks ago." My blood ran cold. "But I just saw him. I was just in his room." The nurse shook her head. "There's no one in room 404. It's been empty since Mr. Henderson passed." She gave me a worried look. "Are you feeling all right?" I stammered, trying to explain, but the words wouldn't come. I felt a wave of dizziness wash over me. I stumbled back to room 404. It was exactly as the nurse described. Empty. The bed stripped bare, no sign that anyone had been there. But then I noticed something on the floor, a small, crumpled piece of paper. I picked it up. It was a visitor's pass with a faded photograph of an elderly man, Mr. Henderson. Turning it over, my heart stopped. Scrawled on the back in shaky handwriting were 3 words, "Don't close your eyes." The room suddenly felt colder, the air thick with a palpable dread. I backed away, my breath catching in my throat. This wasn't a hallucination. This was real. And whatever had been in room 404 was still here, somewhere, watching me. I ran out of the room, down the hallway, not stopping until I reached the main lobby. The bright lights and the presence of other people offered a small measure of comfort, but the fear remained, a cold knot in my stomach. I tried to explain what happened to the security guard, but he just dismissed it as exhaustion. He told me to go home, get some rest, but I knew I couldn't, not yet, not while that message echoed in my mind. "Don't close your eyes." I decided to check the security footage. Maybe there was something, anything, that could explain what I saw. The guard reluctantly agreed, leading me to a small, windowless room filled with monitors. We rewound the footage to 3 a.m., the time I first checked on Mr. Henderson. The grainy black and white images flickered across the screen. There I was, entering room 404. Then, a few minutes later, I exited the room, but I wasn't alone. Behind me, just barely visible in the doorway, was a figure. Tall, gaunt, shrouded in shadows. It seemed to be floating, its feet not quite touching the ground. My blood turned to ice. The security guard gasped, his eyes wide with disbelief. "What the hell?" he muttered. We watched as the figure followed me out of the room, gliding silently down the hallway. Then the footage cut out. Static filled the screen. The guard looked at me, his face pale. I don't know what to say," he stammered. I didn't either. I just knew I had to get out of there. I never went back to that hospital. I quit the next day. But I can't escape the memory. The feeling of being watched, those vacant eyes, the message on the visitor's pass. And every night when I close my eyes, I see that figure, tall and gaunt, gliding towards me from the shadows. And I know deep down that it's still out there, waiting for me to close my eyes.